Let me introduce myself. My name is P.N. Saxena. I'm in my 22nd year in the Leighton School of Business and Economics at IU South Bend. And I have the pleasure of serving as the interim dean of the school. I'm excited that Mayor Pete agreed to come, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say as far as economic development is concerned in the area. As I look out, I see Leighton students, alums, business community leaders, economic development. That's what all of us bring to the table. So thank you all so much for coming, and I hope it's a wonderful and worthwhile evening for you. I would like to begin by inviting Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, Dr. Jan Joseph, to the podium for her welcome remarks.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here. I truly enjoy this part of my job when I have a chance to welcome people to our campus. So on behalf of our Chancellor Allison, it is an honor for me to welcome you. And this is special because this is our first, and I know it would not be our last, Judd Leighton School of Business and Economics Alumni Reception. So this was a wonderful and a great idea. Thank you, PM. Chancellor Allison is traveling today, as I said, but I'm so happy to represent him. And I want to thank the leadership of the Leighton School. And currently, as you know, Dr. Saxena is our interim dean of the school. And this whole idea is his brainchild. So he's doing an excellent job leading the Leighton School. And his energy and his optimism is something that we're really excited about in the college. Thank you for all that you're doing for us, BN. But even as I give him credit, I know for myself, it is the same for him, that he couldn't do all this hard work without the people that he's surrounded by. And I especially want to thank some of the people who supported this event, especially Mike Esposito and Carla Forsythe, and I remember seeing them around. And I'm also seeing in the audience today several of the faculty. So I want to acknowledge these people. Could the staff of the Leighton School please stand or wave to be acknowledged? And I know they're around the corner somewhere. There they are, around the corner. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to acknowledge the faculty of the Leighton School. Could the faculty members who are here please stand up to be acknowledged? Don't be shy, stand up. Thank you so much. And it's important as they stand, some of the students are seeing them and remembering them in all good ways. And I know why you remember them in all good thoughts. If you didn't remember them well, you wouldn't respond to our invitation. So it's really important that we acknowledge the people who serve here as staff and the people who serve here as faculty, because you return when we ask you to because of the memories that you had at this campus. I want to acknowledge some of our other leadership team. I saw several members of our leadership team at the back table. Could you please stand to be acknowledged as well? Okay. Our advancement team, our leadership team. Again, we are here surrounding you and now surrounded by you, because you are our legacy, and our legacy just from one portion of our mission, the business school, but a very important part of our mission. I know the mayor is going to be here pretty soon. Did he just, oh, there you go. Thank you. Perfect timing. So as I continue with my welcome, I want to thank our mayor, Pete Buttigieg, and I got a lot of explanations, so I wouldn't mess that up. And I want to thank him for being here as our keynote and for being a speaker for us. Thank you so much for everything you're doing for South Bend and for taking time from your busy schedule to be with us this evening. We are all looking forward to your remarks. And I just want to say, I truly, truly enjoy living in South Bend. And part of the reason I enjoy living in South Bend is because of the direction this city is going. The energy, the vibrancy, the sense of like there's something around the corner and you want to be there to see it happen. And we couldn't have that feeling of hope and expectations without the leadership of our extraordinary mayor. So thank you so much again, Mayor Pete. So, but this is about not just the staff and the faculty and our mayor, but this is also, and most importantly, about our alumni in the Leighton School. So thank you again for being here. And I just want you to know that on behalf of myself and the Chancellor and everybody who work here, how important you are in helping us to promote and to support not just the Leighton School, but IU South Bend. Because y'all here are proof of all the good that happens on our campus. Your success is our success. We are very, very proud of you. You are helping the economy, because tonight already I'm hearing stories of people who have small businesses and the wonderful things that you're doing and how you're serving in our community. And it's exciting for us because when you graduate and you go out and change the community, you change the world. And every time you make a small change in the world, you know, it's like an angel gets his wings. We hear a bell ring on campus when you do something special, and it really makes us proud. And you are improving the quality of life in our community that makes us all excited. So thank you, our alumni. So because of our alumni, because of our faculty and staff and our students, we know the Leighton School is a shining star in South Bend. And I heard an applause, and I could go with that, yes. And we want to pledge that we as a campus will continue to do everything we can to make you very, very proud of your alma mater. Again, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to stick around a little bit to listen to some of what the mayor has to say, but I'm juggling 2 meetings. So if you see me rush out early, it's because there's something sort of on pause waiting for me upstairs. But thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate having you all here.
Thank you so much for your welcome remarks, Dr. Joseph. Before I invite the mayor, and again, Mayor Pete, thank you so much for your time and for coming. I'd like to take a few minutes to highlight how the Leighton School of Business and Economics continues to play a pivotal role in the region and beyond as it relates to economic development. I told the mayor I'm typically at this time of the day used to teaching a graduate class which goes for 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I think 9:40, Mayor Pete will get a chance to say a few words. I'll keep it brief. I'm standing in between you and the mayor, but I did not want to give up this opportunity to share a little bit about the school. So we stand out. We are one of less than 5% of schools of business in the world that are accredited by AACSB. All of you, students, alumni, you need to put that on your resume. You need to have employers ask you about it, and you need to know more about it. So we are proud of that. What does that do? So I've been asked, what does AACSB do? This is what it does. The reason my wife and I have been here over 21 years is because this is an AACSB accredited school. And I say this often, and many of you think I'm kidding. I like cold weather. That's why I'm here. I grew up in the first part of the state, India, which was incredibly hot. So I added the na, and it's nice and cool. I like it. That's my kind of weather out there, even though it's raining. 5 continents covered. We need to get to South America, but of course, Antarctica, we'll stay without someone from there. Our mission, why do we exist? Student success. How do we get students to be successful? Through a transformative education. That is why we exist. So very quickly, I'm an accountant and A comes first, although I'm unbiased. We supply assets to the community. So some numbers there, you look at the significant accounting firms in this city, and we play a pivotal role in supplying accountants, and these are long-term assets to the community. Exceptional return on investment, Dr. Liu's class. This is a competition that is nationwide. And in 2016, if you look at the top 10, 6 out of the 10, national competition, 6 out of the 10 winners were from IU South Bend, right? So transformative, student success. These are not simply words. We can prove that they mean something. Talk about the marketing department. And Dr. Lee, after 29 and a half years, unfortunately, will be retiring in December. But look at what she's done where did I go? 8 times between 2010 and now, teams in her class have received honors at national competitions. National competitions. So again, significant outcomes that we are able to show through the Leighton School. Economics, rational behavior. So we are training students to go on. Melody Haxton working at the University of Chicago, Brian Hibbs in a PhD program in West Virginia. Okay. We provide other credentialing. So Bloomberg Market Concept Certificate. Okay, Dr. Kohli and his colleagues having all of you complete it, and it's a good feather in your cap, strengthens your resume. SAP certificate. Okay, 18 students last year earned it, so please look for these things. Professor Harry Vasilopoulos, he created this course, took 17 students to Greece, a life-changing experience. We've heard from a lot of them, and it's been approved for next year. So broaden your horizons, that's why you're here. We coach. Rob Dukoff, who was the dean until the end of March, and Professor Fox participated last year in the Michiana Startup Weekend, and the winner was one of our students, Jamie Sanchez. Okay. We innovate. So we've redesigned our MBA program, and there's a table back there. I appreciate Tracy and Alumni Affairs, along with ISBDC and Mike Mancini, setting up the tables back there. What did it lead to? It led to more employees of Whirlpool, Bayer, Notre Dame, Press Ganey, and the list goes on, coming to earn an education in the Leighton School at IU South Bend. Okay, admissions up 215% year over year. ISBDC, we partner with them. They are housed in the Leighton School. Aaron McGuinn is sitting somewhere in the audience. There he is. He's an innovator. So you see his face, and there you see his foot. He has innovated, he's created this wrap with instructions. And look at where he stands with the help of ISBDC. He's potentially going to receive stock and royalties in exchange for his patent, for his innovation. Right? So it's possible, and it's happening in the Leighton School. I want you to feel the power. 15th year of entrepreneurship series. And we have local entrepreneurs coming on campus, typically every Thursday, and sharing their story. Rich Carlton, Data Realty, will be on campus tomorrow at 7. Invigorating stories. I'm an accountant, I'm typically risk averse, and these entrepreneurs come and say, we put all the chips, we cash them in. Like, oh my goodness, I couldn't do that. But that's what it takes many times to be successful and set up your business. We Connect. Mike Mancini has been doing incredible work. If you look at some of the companies he's reached out to, they're looking for non-credit education. We are the partner in the community. It's providing that education to them on a range of different topics. What hopefully is coming soon, and I'm very excited about these things. We're setting up, I hope, fingers crossed, a Leighton swag business. We're the School of Business. How do we learn best? By doing. Well, I'd like to establish a Leighton swag business, and guess who will run it? You. So you want to major in accounting? Do the accounting. You want to major in marketing, advertising? Advertise and market. Let's set goals. Let's set quotas. Right? We are having discussions initially, Alan Steele, thanks to ISBDC, around an interesting DTSB initiative. Setting up an innovation center, which encourages innovation. Having a Shark Tank competition. I saw Mark Bradford, extremely motivated faculty. If you've ever had a class with Mark, extremely motivated. So a lot of good ideas that I'm happy to try to run forward with, because it will help us, it will help the community, it will have a significant impact on the school. State-of-the-art majors and certificates. I had the pleasure of talking to Jerry from about risk management and insurance from Gibson Insurance, and about setting up, and from what Jerry tells me, there's huge demand, guaranteed employment once you go through it. I've talked to Professor Kohli about setting it up. So exciting things are happening, and we want you to be part of the excitement, because that's the reason we are doing it, right? What are a couple quick takeaways? There are around 7,000 Leighton alumni. Approximately 70% of them live, work, and contribute to each sector in the area. So think about the impact that we have as it relates to economic development. And what is our goal? Our goal is to create a sense of community and family. I come from India, and there's nothing more powerful than a family. Nothing. You don't have to get along with everybody. You don't have to love everybody. That's okay. But we are a family. And the goal is to create a sense of community and family, which will help us, the community, help you retain, graduate, and really fundamentally change the region. So that's my 2 hours and 40 minutes in 6 minutes. And thank you for your attention, and thank you for your patience. So I have the honor, switching topics, of introducing the mayor of South Bend, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who will talk about the future of economic development in South Bend. Mayor Pete grew up in South Bend, went to St. Joe High School. After earning a degree from Harvard, studying as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, and working at McKinsey & Company, in 2012, at the age of 29, he became the youngest mayor of a city with over 100,000 residents. Mayor Pete has championed a number of initiatives over the past 4 years, and we look forward to partnering with him and the administration to strengthen the economy by continuing to provide a quality education to local students, a majority of whom stay in the area, which helps attract and retain businesses as well as not-for-profit organizations. So it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Mayor Pete to the podium.
Well, thank you, and good evening. And I apologize that I was running a little bit late today. Trying to get out of town, the road construction is just brutal. I don't know if anybody's trying to get it. No, it's a real pleasure to be here, and I can sort of claim to be an alum in the sense that for many years I would come every week to take piano lessons in Northside Hall. So IU South Bend is familiar territory, and it's also something that as a mayor I'm very proud of and enjoy telling people when I go around the country about just how many centers of excellence we have in university education right here in South Bend. I was asked to say a little bit about economic development, and so I'll do my best to be relatively compact in my remarks so we can have some time for questions and answers too. But I wanted to share a bit of a state of play in terms of where we are right now, and then share a couple of ideas about what it's going to take to keep our economic momentum and take it to the next level. The headline probably is that South Bend is in the midst of an extraordinary comeback. I'm convinced that the years that we are living in will go down in history as perhaps the most positively transformative decade in the modern life of our city. We have reversed trends in unemployment and job loss, both through locally distinct action and through taking advantage of the national economic recovery. When we took office in January 2012, unemployment was at 11.7%. The last data out now have us at 4.5. In January of 2012, there were 131,700 jobs. Now we're about 7,000 jobs ahead of that. And importantly, labor force participation is exceeding those around us. And that matters because sometimes an unemployment rate can go down, and that's misleading because it just means some people have given up. And we're seeing improvements in labor force participation, although we've got more work to do. And I'll say a little more about that in a moment. A lot of that's been through city partnerships, and we're proud of that. About $520 million in private dollars have come into the city through collaborations with the city, leading to, we estimate, 3,184 new jobs. And yet we recognize that it's really the private sector that has to be the engine of growth. So when you look through our downtown area, for example, at things like the LaSalle Hotel, the Hoffman Hotel, the Renaissance District putting the Studebaker factory back to use, the JMS building being repurposed as residences, the Chase Tower getting a $31 million investment, bringing it back to life, the donations that are making the Children's Hospital possible, a memorial, all of that energy, all of that growth is from the community. It doesn't come from the government, but we believe that local policy and city leadership can play a role to help or hurt. So how do we do it? How do we get to a good place economically? First of all, one of the early things that I realized when I took office is how we don't do it. And one answer to that is we don't do it as government by deciding what industries are going to make it. When I was getting ready to take office, everybody said, Mayor, what's it going to be? What's the next economy going to look like? Is it biotech? Is it nano? I realized very quickly it was not my place to say. That's not a question that's going to be resolved on the 14th floor of the county city building. What we do know is that we can create certain conditions in which whatever businesses have a very good future are more likely to thrive. And that begins by acknowledging that some things have changed. So there was a great deal, still is, a great deal of nostalgia in our community for the economy we used to have. Back when the Big Three was the Big Four, when Studebaker was among the most powerful automotive companies in the world. And that ended in 1963, and it is not going to come back. And the important thing for our generations that are living and working and creating jobs today is to recognize that's okay. It's not going to come back, but South Bend is. And the way it's going to happen is based on a number of steps that are completely within our power. The first is to recognize that those traditional strengths still add up to something. For example, we are not, as a country or as a region, we are not out of the business of making things. Manufacturing, especially advanced manufacturing, still has a very important role. 2/3 of all private sector R&D comes from the manufacturing sector. And right here in our community, I can show you places that are manufacturing things that you wouldn't believe are being shipped all over the world. You go over by Frankie's Barbecue on West Washington Street. This kind of nondescript white and blue building called MTI. And the people in there are making machines the size of your house. And they're going all over the world. One of them went to because they have this proprietary friction welding. Nobody else can do it. One of them went to an assembly line in Mexico for Ford. So the auto workers who are making that Ford are Mexican. But the workers who are making the machines that those workers are going to use are right here in South Bend. And it's an example of how we can march up the value chain in order to deliver more and more sophisticated products that really do still have to be made in the USA. And if it can be made in the USA, I can sell why it ought to be made right here in South Bend. Another example is AM General, where we have vehicles on contract assembly for Mercedes. They're making something called the R-Class. And if you've never seen an R-Class around here, it's because they don't sell them around here. They go to China. The customers for the R-Class are exclusively Chinese. So I've got American union auto workers producing a German-branded vehicle going to customers in China. They're sending their money here, and we're sending our goods, not our jobs, overseas. That's what globalization ought to look like for a community like South Bend in the future. Another thing we need to do, in addition to our traditional strengths, is see that some of our old resources have new value. So we've always been good at sheet metal, but what's new is that one of our biggest sheet metal makers, which just changed their name in order to keep with the times, is now making products for the solar industry because there's a boom in metal products that go into solar panel deployments. We have what's increasingly being called the Silicon Prairie on some of the very same grounds where the old Studebaker factories stood. Data centers, businesses that are in an industry that didn't even exist when the last Studebaker rolled off the line in 1963, that are creating jobs because we have a trifecta. First of all, that great weather Professor Saxena talked about, and inexpensive electrical power, and an incredible amount of fiber optic bandwidth because when they were laying out the cables that actually carry the internet, which are in fact a physical thing, despite what you hear about the cloud is physical in a certain sense. And those fiber optic cables, when they had to put them somewhere, they put them on the very same railway and highway right-of-ways that made South Bend a relevant location in the industrial days. So little did we know that the trifecta of cold weather, cheap power, and high fiber was going to create new jobs, but that's exactly what it's doing. And you'll learn more about that tomorrow if you attend Rich Carlton's lecture about data realty. Making sure we understand the value of the assets we have. A third thing that we've had to do is unite regionally. There for a long time, and in some corners still is, a mentality, especially among local politicians, that our only responsibility is within our city limits and everybody else is the enemy. So Mishawaka is the competition, would be the mentality. The problem is, first of all, Mishawaka is right there. When I take my morning run, I go past IUSB, I go onto the bridge at Ironwood with Martin's there, and I go across, and then I come back on that beautiful footbridge that you've got here. That's running to Mishawaka and back. It's not relevant to how most people live exactly where the city limit is. And I don't believe it's relevant to our economy either. So I would argue that a good rule of thumb for deciding what economic region you're in is the viewing area of a TV broadcast station, that footprint, which in our case is about 500,000 to 1 million people in about a dozen counties. I figure if I'm getting your thunderstorm warnings, you're in my economy. And we need to think and act accordingly. That's what regional cities, by the way, which I think is the single best idea to come out of the current gubernatorial administration in Indianapolis. That's what regional cities did. It was a competitive grant that created a pot of gold for regions if and only if they could demonstrate a regional plan. And by partnering with our old competitors in places like Elkhart and Marshall County, we were able to come up with a unified plan and get $42 million in state funding that we're now able to apply to dozens of projects around the community. And once you unite regionally, you also have to learn how to think globally, to understand the importance of overseas investment in our community, or some of our highest profile companies like Press Ganey, held by holding companies in other countries. Recognize the importance of immigration at a time when 40% of Fortune 500 companies are founded by people who were not born in the United States. And understanding, as I was talking about earlier, the importance of the export of goods that are made here, because most of the world's purchasing power is somewhere else. And so we want to be selling to them. Another thing we've done is make it easier to do business. We've created a one-stop shop, a single person who's responsible for facilitating, but actually he's right over there, Brian Pulowski, among the many other city colleagues who are joining us tonight. Making sure that there's a go-to so that a business person doesn't have to guess exactly what floor they got to go on to get this permit and get it stamped there and sent where. Nope, I don't even know how that works. He does, and he can make it really easy for you. And we've tried to be a little more user-friendly for the business community. We had a tax abatement form, which was 17 pages. We got it down to 2 double-sided sheets of paper, and we still capture all the information required by law. Anything we can do to just make it a little more predictable, a little more simple, a little more straightforward, reduces transaction costs for entrepreneurs and businesses, and gives them one more reason to stay and grow here rather than somewhere else. We're partnering with anchor institutions. That's one of the reasons that IU South Bend is so extremely important to the future of the city, as is every other college in the region and other institutions like our hospitals and our museums and our nonprofits. We are seeing partnerships, the likes of which I don't think have ever happened in our region, in order to drive economic development and encourage growth in the arts, something we're very proud of and something that I believe sets us apart in terms of what's special about a city like ours, this little city of 100,000 people that's just small enough to have every city problem, but just big enough, but just small enough that you can get your arms around it and you can try different things and you can enlist partners in creative ways. We're stressing innovation, trying to make sure that we have a culture throughout the community, in government, but also just at large, that celebrates new ideas and questions habit. Not every habit is bad, but every habit ought to be questioned. If we're doing something because we've always done it that way, something's wrong. If we've always done it that way for a good reason, that's fine, but we got to check. And the one sentence that's banned in the county city building is we've always done it. We're doing it this way because we've always done it that way. We are among the handful of cities that we hope will receive, for example, a National Science Foundation grant to pioneer 5G. You pull out your smartphone. You ever notice, by the way, whenever somebody wants to make a reference in a speech or a conversation to a phone, they always have to physically get out their phone and hold it up as a prop. Anyway, if you do that, you'll see it says 4G. There's talk of setting up 5G. I want South Bend to be one of the cities that pilots that. Because I think, again, at our scale, at our size, just big enough to be complicated, but just small enough to try new things, we could establish a reputation as the beta city, the city where new ideas come to be tested at just a big enough scale that you can see what the issues are before you go to an even bigger scale. And we as a community benefit from the application of new technology. But whoever's doing it with us also benefits because they'll grow here and they just might even decide to put their company here too. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that our economic growth is inclusive. That's why we have partnerships in workforce development, strong service programs with different community leading organizations, including, again, IU South Bend. One more thing I want to mention, which is recognizing the importance of place. So in economic development, cities and states took a long time to get out of the mode of what I call smokestack chasing. I'm not the first person to call it that. Basically, the idea that there's some employer somewhere, some factory, and if we could just go find them and convince them to move to where we are, we'll have all the jobs we need. A lot of problems with that approach. Not the least of which is a company that's very responsive to me coming over and recruiting them is probably going to be pretty responsive to somebody else coming over and recruiting them 7 years later. And we want sticky companies. We want companies with South Bend in their DNA for some reason, such as that they were started by somebody who's already here. But in order to do that, we have to be the kind of place that people want to live. We often forget that companies are made of people. By the time I'm doing my song and dance for a CEO, deciding where to locate a business unit, they've already done the math. They've already figured out the costs of land, labor, utilities, taxes, incentives. They know 98% of what's documented in black and white. What they come here to find out is what kind of community are we? They want to know whether they would like to live here, whether their employees would like to live here, whether they can recruit more good employees from here or from somewhere else to choose to live here. And in order to do that, you've got to have quality of place. That's what Smart Streets is actually about. And it works. You know, the folks behind the College Football Hall of Fame, the Chase Tower renovation, and the LaSalle Hotel, which collectively represent more than $50 million invested in our city, have made it clear that they might not have done that if we weren't investing in having a vibrant place, a vibrant sense of place downtown through better streetscapes. It's why public art is so important. It's not a luxury. You know, a lot of communities have gone so far as to establish a policy that 1% of every project that they do, even if it's building a bridge, 1% gets set aside for art. The reason is because art helps create the kind of places people actually want to be. And the truth is, most of you don't decide where to go just based on whether there's a job or there's not a job. There's a job for most of you, and there's a dream job for most of you. And where you're willing to go on the spectrum between the least appealing job you're willing to take and the job that you would move to the North Pole just in order to have a shot at. How you make that decision largely depends on whether you were talking about a place you'd actually like to live. And those things factor in together. So that's why we are investing in public art like you've already seen. If you haven't had a chance, I hope you go and see the river lights that we have by Sites Park. We're so proud of that because of the effect it has on our sense of place. But also organizing our entire city government around it in a new way. Combining, for example, our Department of Parks and Recreation with the management of our venues like the Century Center and the Morris Theater, and assets like our downtown parking garages and DTSB, to have them viewed in a single framework that all has to do with establishing a desirable sense of place. And it's why we've worked so hard on attractive neighborhoods, confronting the challenge of vacant and abandoned properties, for example, with a ton of research and analysis that led to a goal of almost childlike simplicity, which was me saying, we're going to do 1,000 houses in 1,000 days, and then challenging ourselves to actually deliver, which I'm proud to say we did last year, fixing hundreds of them and demolishing the ones that we couldn't save. So that's how we got to the good place that we're in. But how do we make sure that that stays? I mean, first of all, we keep doing what works, all those things that I just mentioned. But there's some other steps that I think we have to take too. First of all, we have to recognize that the current national economic expansion will not go on forever. And so we have to make sure that our economy is robust enough, that it has enough different firms in it, that we have enough different things for people to do, that when we do start having a headwind instead of a tailwind economically, we're ready. There's no reason that the next recession has to break us. but it will make a big difference whether we're prepared or not by having robust, diversified, and risk-ready businesses and firms and employers in our economy. It also means we have to get more serious about inclusion. Even though it's my job to cheerlead for all of the tremendous achievements that have been made, it would be naive to pretend that everybody in the community feels that they've been able to participate equally in that. And there's a lot of powerful data showing that if you compare two cities or states or countries of more or less equal average wealth, the one with more internal inequality will end up growing less over time. And outcomes from life expectancy to safety will be worse when it's less equal. So in a community where more than half of the population can still be considered what we would call working poor, and where 28% are below the federal poverty line, and where the per capita personal income is $19,000, we can't kid ourselves that just because we've got a lot of gleaming investments and results in the downtown area that our work's going to be done. We've got to make sure that those who for some reason feel that they are excluded from the economy have a chance to be part of the growth. That means workforce development. That means family leave policies and child care affordability that allows more women to participate in the workforce. It means making sure that we have adequate wages for everybody at every level. And it means new partnerships like the Pathways effort, where we're collaborating with Work One to invest in hardworking citizens with job counseling, education, and training opportunities, which has so far led to 34 hiring placements with an average hourly wage of at least $13. That we're doing those things to create more rungs on the economic ladder that are going to make everybody better off. It means making sure that things that could be a divider turn out to be a uniter, like the digital divide that so often prevents some people from. I ran into somebody not long ago who was unsure of how she could apply for her first job because she was very low income and didn't have regular access to phone or email. There's a lot of people in our community who have a smartphone, but they don't have a data plan. That's why we set up downtown Wi-Fi that's free of charge. It's not the best, fastest Wi-Fi you'll ever get, but it's something that makes it possible for people to participate in the digital economy and removes one more barrier between people and the opportunity to have the life of their choosing. It means making sure small businesses have a bite at the apple, using the city not only as a policy-making body, but also as a purchaser, making sure the purchasing power of the city is deployed in a way that invites a lot of people to the table, not just firms and contractors that have been working with the city for as long as I've been alive, but new ones coming to the table with new ideas and perhaps people who are newly seeking their opportunities as entrepreneurs. And it means being very serious about supporting education, supporting the new leadership at the South Bend School Corporation, who has a big task cut out for him but is off to a great start. Making sure that we're graduating people from our university programs and then making sure that we keep them. You know, in the state of Indiana, only about half of the people who graduate with bachelor's degrees from Indiana stay here. That's why it's so encouraging to hear that the graduates of this program, the alumni like you, are much more likely to remain here in the community. I'm happy to educate people from all over the world, but it's a lot more gratifying if you stay here and produce and contribute to the economy. And lastly, mobility. Making sure that people can actually physically get around to where they need to go, especially low-income people. That's part of what the Complete Streets policy is about, because the reality is bike lanes are not just for hipsters, they're also for people who rely on bicycles as a way to get around. It's making sure that we have better transportation corridors and that our bus system is robust and able to support people with, we hope over time, better optimized routes and frequency. So this brings me to where you all fit in, and hopefully you're able to hear this a little bit through some of my comments already, but the reality is the currency by which communities rise and fall, live or die, is talent and skill. And the talents and skills that you have brought and then cultivated in the programs that you have done here at IU are talents and skills that we critically need in order to continue on that economic path and continue growing. And so our mission as a city is to make sure that we both have the economy where you can belong and the community where you want to be, so that as you think about what purpose you're going to apply your many talents toward, you find that it comes into alignment in a way that benefits not only you, but those around you in our neighborhoods and our city for generations to come. South Bend is in the best position it has been in any of our lifetimes. We're a long way past the days when I was growing up when it felt like success meant getting out. People are coming to our community, they're staying in our community, they're doing it with good reason, but now we've got to keep it that way, doubling down on what works and facing the toughest problems that we haven't yet cracked. Because when we do crack it here, it'll have implications for the rest of the region and the rest of the country. More than anything, it matters for us to stay internally, regionally, and globally connected so that the encounters, the exchange, the friction, the collaboration, the competition that make the American economy what it is can multiply the human productivity and the economic growth of our region. And our city, even though it's small in the global scheme of things, has all of the advantages that will allow us to continue to punch above our weight class and go to the next level and the level beyond that. That's why I'm so optimistic about our city and excited to be in this position. So let me stop there and see if there are any questions or ideas from any of you that we can talk about until I'm told that our time is up.
So we do have a mic here. If you want to come up, please ask questions related to economic development and keep them short. But please ask questions.
If you have a question, please come up this way and use the microphone to ask the mayor a question. Don't all jump at once.
Please be sure to introduce yourself as you ask the question too. Love to know who you are and what you studied and where you're from.
Hi, Mayor Pete, everyone. I'm Kevin McFadden, a senior here. Just because we're an area that's so, I guess the population density is so spread out, I came to learn this summer that a lot of the jobs, like on the west side, people really, even with our bus routes, have trouble getting to good, sustainable jobs. So I guess in light of Uber and these sorts of technologies, maybe funding from other companies, what sort of transportation options do you see in the future, short of just public busing?
It's a great question, and it's one that's really on the top of my mind right now, because nothing would be worse than to see people who are in an economic trap where you need a good job in order to afford to have a car, but you don't have a car to get you to your job. And this is especially true for people who are very vulnerable on the economic ladder, where one missed day of work could really be a disaster for them. We have a transpo system. People work very hard to make that work, but the reality, if you use it, as I do from time to time, is that the routes are not that rich, and they're not that widespread, and they're not that frequent either. And the real problem with that is if you don't have a lot of routes and frequency, you don't have as many riders as you want. Now, a lot of their funding actually comes from a federal formula that's based on how many riders you have. So if you're low on funding and you got to cut routes to stay in business, you lose riders and you wind up losing funding too, and you're in this trap. And we're trying to figure out how to turn that around. I haven't solved this one yet, is the honest answer. But I think the way you phrase your question points to where the answer might lie, which is in 2016, in the sharing economy, there's got to be a way, right? There's got to be some things. Maybe if it's only solving that last mile puzzle, right, where the bus route ends, but there's still a mile and a half between you and the distribution center where you just got a job. And I've raised this issue with the president of Uber and with some of the folks at the Department of Transportation, and there's some good minds thinking about this, and we're really, we're even thinking about engaging one of the leading video game companies in the world, just because they know a lot about how people move around with their smartphones. There's got to be a way in 2016 to solve that, and we're working on it. So if you've got any ideas, or if anybody develops any ideas, perhaps in the form of a new business, perhaps just in the form of something you think we ought to think about, that's very welcome, because we're going to try to tackle that in the years to come.
Hello, Mayor Pete. My name is Mike Stazeski, and I used to be alumni 2015. And my question is about the libraries, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about the public library and that kind of economic development. But maybe also if you could talk about what I think is more important is the amount of public input that may or may not have participated in those economic developments with the library.
Yeah, so first of all, we're very proud of Mike, somebody who interned in the mayor's office as a student at Ivy Tech, and very proud to see him succeeding here at IU. So the library is another unit of government that, like us, is public but is independent from us. The role of libraries is really changing and developing in new ways right now. And I think there will always be a place, of course, for books. There better be. I love books. But I think libraries, in a way, have never been more important, but in many ways also have not yet come into alignment with where the need is. Libraries have, at a time when information is power, more than ever before, libraries have the opportunity to increase access to the digital connections that you need, to not only provide a route to get information, but perhaps to connect people with other people who can make that information intelligible. Sometimes I say that it's not enough for transparency to just push information out. Like, we work really hard on transparency in the city, but I can tell you right now, if you tried to navigate the budget document, which in the interest of transparency I've made sure is published, it will look like gobbledygook, 1,000 pages of stuff, which is why we tried to create a summary that actually explains what it means in English, which we call a popular annual financial report. I think libraries have a chance to do that, but I don't think they've quite figured out how. And so I think there needs to be more input. And I think the leadership of the library, recognizes, especially recently with some differences of opinion about their latest expansion plan, that there really needs to be a dialogue with the city, but also just with the public in the form of public meetings. And I get it. When you're trying to run an organization, any organization, you're under a lot of pressure to deliver decisions, to deliver the right decisions quickly. And sometimes it can really slow you down to engage the public and to engage all the different stakeholders. But it pays off in the long run to do that really richly, even to the point where you're getting pretty tired of it. I can't tell you, to do Smart Streets, we had more than 40 different public meetings. And it wasn't just us selling the idea, although we did a lot of that. It was us listening and learning and ultimately changing some of the answers about what we were going to do. And I think every unit of local government, from the township to the schools to the sheriff to the city to the library, benefits when they do that more richly. And I'm looking forward to taking the library leadership up on their offer to be a little more connected and to really hammer out a common plan, not only about what the library means for the community, but of course what such an important facility means for downtown as we're redrawing the whole streetscape around it.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hi, Mayor Pete. My name is Tomas. I'm a senior here, focused on healthcare management. My question is, how is the city being better at engaging, keeping our veterans? Because I am a veteran here and being productive. I do see a lot of negativity when it comes to being here and trying to ensure yourself to be a success and better the community.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for serving. And this is obviously something that's kind of important to me personally as a veteran, as well as just important to the future of the city. I think there's 2 things we need to do. One of them was exemplified this morning. There was an event, maybe a few of you were able to see it or be part of it, called the Michiana Military Stand Down for Veterans and Returning Families. And the whole idea is to make sure that local veterans had a chance to come face to face with people there to help them take advantage of some of the services that they've earned. There's nothing more frustrating than learning that somebody, by virtue of the service they've given to our country, is entitled to some benefit, especially something like education, that multiplies what you're able to contribute. But also, things from housing to financial support that they're entitled to and they just don't know it or they haven't taken advantage of it. And it's also an opportunity to support our most vulnerable veterans. Who have often come with a lot of needs, some of which are directly connected to their service, and making sure that we're supporting them. But there's something else that I think has to happen too, and that is making sure that veterans are regarded, first of all, as a coveted and desirable community asset, and not just as a basket of needs. Because the men and women that I served with come back to their communities with an incredible amount of skill and resources, calm under pressure, flexibility, and teamwork that would be the envy of many employers if they were well understood. And so I think part of how we engage veterans is by, frankly, competing for veterans And one of the initiatives that we have going on that I'm very proud of is the Veterans Community Connections Initiative. So what we do is, hooked up through our 311 line, resources to navigate people who are either new to our community, maybe they're retiring, maybe they're coming back from a deployment. Not so much on the VA stuff, that's what the other side of the house is for. Just on how to find your way around our community, what the good employers are, where to get good dental care or music lessons for your kid. And the mentality behind it is that veterans are something we should be competing over. I want South Bend to have a reputation for being a great place for veterans to move to or come back to. And I think that's what success looks like. And if we do both of those, celebrate what veterans bring to the table in our hiring processes, in our public conversation, and our recruitment efforts, and recognize that those who have the most needs have to get connected better to the resources available for them, then I think we can distinguish ourselves as an excellent city in veteran friendliness. And my hope is over time we'll develop a well-deserved reputation for doing just that.
Hi, Joe Singer, class of 2008, now representing First Source. And part of my role, I help a lot of small business, not just the startups, but the really, really small business there. And we're blessed in this community to have SCORE, now ISBDC back. But part of the question I hear all the time is, what can we get from the city as far as resources or places to turn to help get their small business started? Because you're kind of looking at all the new future small businesses around here.
Yeah, well, great question, especially because most new job creation happens in the smaller businesses. And also, again, because as delighted as I am anytime a large facility decides it's going to move to this area, the reality is most job creation, and certainly most sticky job creation, is going to come from businesses that begin here. I mean, that's the best reason to be somewhere, is that you started there. And so the businesses that I am hoping that all of you have or will start or be a part of are a critical part of our economic future. So how can we help? Let me start with a little honesty, which is we can't make a business succeed or fail. That depends on the strength of a business. And we're not here to change the answer on whether the market is ready for a business idea or not. But we do want to change the answer, if we can, on whether this is the best place that that business can grow. And so we try to create support in two forms, direct and indirect. Direct has to do with making sure that the city lines up everything we can to help you grow. Sometimes that might mean something in the form of a tax abatement, for example. So if you can demonstrate that some effort that you're doing is going to deliver a certain amount of investment and lead to a certain number of jobs, the city can support you by phasing in over time your taxes instead of paying it all up front. We can connect you to resources, many of which, again, are outside the government, like SCORE and SBDC, but also the Chamber of Commerce, or even just other businesses that you should know about as you're trying to grow. One of the ones I'm most excited about doing is becoming better, as I said earlier, as a purchaser, because we should be doing business with you if you are a local small business that's doing a great job. And we should make sure that you understand how to compete and that it's not a confusing black box when you're trying to go in for city business. We buy a lot of stuff. We're a $300 million organization. And we need everything from paper clips to consulting services. And I'd much rather get it from around here, where those dollars go back into our community, than anywhere else. But it's possible that the indirect support is actually what matters most. And that is making sure that there is clean, safe drinking water and safety in the area around you, and the kind of place where your current and future employees want to live, and the kind of street out in front of you where somebody can park and somebody can safely walk or bike to you and might want to hang around and make that neighborhood a better place. All the things that public health, which we don't control directly but influence through things like the availability of parks and trails, like the new coal line trail that we're going to turn an old railroad into a trail through test, stuff like that, the placemaking piece. At the end of the day, it's possible that that's actually going to be the decisive thing for whether it makes sense for a business to be here. We're not interested in tricking any business that shouldn't be here into coming. We're interested in making it the case that a business that starts and grows and competes here is better off than if it did that any other place. And every day from an economic development perspective, we think about what are the things we can do to make sure that's true. And that's everything from things that we hope you'll never notice or think about, like the toilet flushes. I mean, if that ever didn't, you would notice, but we want to make sure it always does. so that that's one less thing for you to worry about, because it's hard enough running your business if you're not worried about things like that. All the way through to the finer points of support for the most promising and innovative businesses that we have in the community. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and trust that I'll be able to work with many of you as you grow and succeed in the private sector or whatever sector you decide to find your future in, hopefully right here in South Bend. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Pete.
Thank you for your remarks, Mayor Pete. We appreciate your time and your thoughts. Before we end, I'd like to take a moment to thank just a fraction of the people who worked hard to make this evening a success. I'm not sure if Andre Adeyemi is here with you, but please thank him on my behalf. I pride myself on sending emails quickly. Andre is lightning fast. So I send an email, he knows what I'm thinking, he responds before I send it. And I've really appreciated that. It's made it easy. Mike Esposito, who started in his role in May and has done a fantastic job as Director of Career Planning in the school, a number of students nodding. So please make Mike a busy man by going out to see him and getting him to help you with the resume. Carla Forsyth, who did a wonderful job, and she's here somewhere. Pat Egbetsiafa and the staff, who did also a wonderful job. Maureen Muldoon, who controls the space, so we were able to get it. Andrew and Sodexo for the wonderful hors d'oeuvres that you enjoyed. So thank you all so much for coming, for making this evening a success. Please feel free to mingle and to network, and we'll see you at the students in the room at the Career Fair on October 12th. We are doing it just for you, business and economics majors, internship and career fair. So we'll see you there. If not there, we'll see you the Entrepreneur Lecture Series or another event. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you.